Okay.
All right, so we have the following updates, Judge.
All right.
Randy Brown is out on bond.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
And so I think that concludes Mr. Drayton's cases.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. We hate to see you go, Mr. Drayton, but
Well, thank you, Your Honor. It's always a pleasure.
it's always, and I just love your background. I don't know what it is.
Thank you.
Very, very nice. All right, then. Thank you, Attorney Drayton. We're going to go ahead and release you out of this meeting.
All right. Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome, sir.
Good day. And
You as well. Be safe. Thank you, sir. All right.
And we reached a consent bond for Brittany Long.
Lloyd. Lloyd.
I'm sorry, Brittany Lloyd.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
As well as Montavious Darden. And in the confusion, Darden, we did a bond on it, probably a relative to Montavious Darden this past week. Mm-hmm. And so we did, and so Ms. Skull, I emailed those to Ms. Skull, so she has those. And then finally on Darrell Williams.
One second. So can we let Ms. Skull go, or should we hold her in here for a minute?
I just printed them, Judge. If I can step away, get them signed, and once I get them back to Ms. Freeman, I don't mind being excused. That,
Okay,
let me get them back to her.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much, Attorney
Thank you.
Skull. All right, Attorney Freeman.
And then on Darrell Williams, we also, Mr. Rose and I reached a consent, and those have been sent to Ms. Rose. And I did confirm Mr. Myers, or with Ms. Myers, to check. So previously on the armed robbery, the state had reduced that to an ag assault, and the burglary we reduced to a theft by taking. And so when Your Honor, when you get the bond form, it will be reflected on that bond form that the armed robbery was reduced to an ag assault and the burglary was reduced to a theft by taking.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, so as soon as they get the paperwork, Mr. Rose will be free to go as well.
Yes, and so the only thing that's remaining is Connolly with Mr. Prothero. And I know there is an issue that we need to discuss before the hearing begins on Mr. Connolly's case.
Okay. All right. And you know, I typically have Attorney Prothero.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you submit paperwork type of thing for Connolly's bond?
I'm sorry, Judge. Would you repeat your
You know,
question?
your motion for bond. Did you did you submit the paperwork? Because I never got anything on Connolly in terms of your motion or anything like that.
I did not. I apologize, Your Honor. I was under the impression that the clerk's office would prepare the paperwork based on whatever bond ruling you made today.
No.
I can submit bond paperwork. I can submit it quickly.
Okay, very good. Because that's typically how it goes. We get something from the attorney regarding because it's a motion.
Sorry, you broke up again. You said you need something from the attorney. What?
I do, because it's your motion for the bond.
Okay.
You would submit some type of paperwork in support of your motion for bond.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Do you need a minute to do that? Do you need some time to submit that?
Yeah, if you could give me, 15 minutes or so.
Okay, fine. And Ms. Freeman, is there anything else that we could be, so you could be signing the paperwork from the other attorneys in that 15 minutes?
No, we've already, I'm just waiting to get the email from Ms. Skull and Mr. Rhodes. Now, before we leave, does Your Honor, the issue that Mr. Prothero and I have to discuss relates to some of the evidence that he wants to present during his presentation.
All right, let me have him back on the call.
Okay.
Attorney Prothero, do you want to come back on the call? Let's see. He might be. I tell you what, when we come back in 15 minutes, let's take 15 minutes so Attorney Prothero can get his paperwork to, and then we'll just deal with all the issues.
Oh, here, I think he's coming.
Is he?
No, he didn't.
Hello to our court reporter, Ms. Coleman. Good morning. So good to see you.
Thank
with
you.
Your name on it.
Thank you. I did all of this for you, Judge.
You look very nice. You
Thank
got
you.
the right background.
Okay.
I'm going to be on YouTube today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. It's good to see the court reporter.
Good to see you too, Judge. Thank
Yes, I
you.
do. Yes, ma'am. And so Attorney Prothro is, there you are.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so Ms. Freeman was about to make some statements, and I told her that it would be better to wait for you to get back on the call.
Right. I
Okay.
was, George, I was letting the court know or asking if she wanted to, us to go over the issues that we have before we start the hearing, before we break, for you to prepare whatever paperwork you need. It's in regards to some evidence that Mr. Prothro wants to present. We've talked about it offline, and he knows that I'm objecting to it. And we, I guess, just wanted to, I guess, be able to have that discussion with Your Honor first. And then that may certainly, I think, depending on Your Honor's ruling, may determine how we proceed also.
Okay. Do you want to handle that first, Attorney Prothro?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so what exactly are we trying? What evidence are you attempting to?
Well, Your Honor, in addition to the Ayala factors, I wanted to present evidence, and I have a witness that's standing by that will assist in that testimony, or that presentation. I wanted to present evidence related to the whereabouts of Mr. Connolly on the date of the alleged incident. I think that when we had the preliminary hearing earlier this week, I made a side note or reference that we did have a very, what we believe to be a very strong alibi defense. Now, I know that Mr. Connolly is charged with a very serious trafficking offense, a very serious drug offense, Your Honor. But I wanted, in order for the court to have the full picture, to have an understanding that, you know, with him still maintaining the presumption of innocence, that we do have witnesses that can testify that they believe that, and that he was somewhere else on the date of this incident. And I thought it would be just for the court's, you know, own information to know that in context with what the state is accusing him of, that we have people that are saying that, hey, he was somewhere else at this time. So I presented Ms. Freeman with some photographs that I've sent her before, but I wanted to present them as part of this bond hearing to show what the foundation of some of our alibi defense. And I believe it's that evidence that she's objecting to. I do understand that, you know, the Ayala factors that are typically raised or presented during a bond hearing, but just because of the serious nature of this offense and the state's original offer is for a very high bond, I wanted to bring some other factors into the court and in hope that the court would consider some factors outside of Ayala for reasons to make the court more comfortable in granting our motion for bond today.
Okay, Ms. Freeman, do you want to respond or do you want?
Well, I can respond, and it's kind of the same thing that I explained to Mr. Prothro before, is that that would have been evidence to present during the preliminary hearing when the officer, the state's witness, was testifying, and to ask questions or provide information regarding could it have possibly been someone other than Mr. Connolly. But to present that information at a bond hearing, this is not the forum. If he has an alibi defense, that is something certainly that if the case proceeds to a trial, that would be more appropriate there. But I certainly object to any evidence regarding an alleged alibi defense to be presented during a bond hearing. Now, it's my understanding from Mr. Prothro that this witness can also testify to, some other things relative to bond, which I don't have an objection to, but anything regarding an alibi defense, that he was somewhere else, I certainly have an objection to that being presented at this bond hearing.
All right. So, Mr. Attorney Prothro, I tend to agree with Attorney Freeman in terms of this not being the right proceeding to submit any alibi defense. That would have been more appropriate during a preliminary hearing. And further, I think it would be in context for a motion to suppress or a motion in limine as the case further progresses through this whole court system. So that would be my response. The bond hearing, we typically don't even get to the charges. This is something that we talk about everything else, and you talk about the Ayala factors. That's exactly where I stay pretty firmly entrenched into. So no, I'm not going to allow any evidence that may be potential alibi witnesses or evidence in at this stage of the proceeding. I don't know if you want to talk to Ms. Freeman and see if there's something else that the two of you can agree to, but it won't come in today during the bond hearing.
And Judge, just to clarify, I didn't want to lay out a full-blown alibi defense. I do understand that would be inappropriate for this particular hearing, but I did want this witness to talk about her interaction with Mr. Connolly on the alleged date of the incident, and that would get into the defense. But this witness has other items and other information that I wanted to present to the court. So that's not the evidence as to that could lead to potential alibi defense is not the sum total of her testimony. Her testimony does have other items that I think would be more closely aligned with the Ayala factors. But yes, I did fully intend to bring up some other issues that were outside of Ayala in hopes that the court would entertain that information just to take the entire case into context and in perspective. So I wasn't trying to lay down a full-blown defense today, Your Honor, just simply to get her to explain what happened that day, her experience with Mr. Connolly, that type of thing.
Okay, so I need her to narrow, and I don't know if you need to, when you get off the call, I need her to narrow her testimony to how she knows him.
Mm-hmm.
Not a flight risk, that he's got ties to the community. I need you to make sure she narrows her testimony and any evidence that she provides to those factors that are involved in Ayala. I don't want to hear anything else about the date of the incident, because that is not relevant for a bond hearing. I'm not saying it's not relevant for anything else, but for a bond hearing, that's not any evidence that the court is going to consider in a bond hearing. So when you take your time to get the motion to the court, you as well need to talk to your the witness and make sure that she stays pretty true to what we're going to ask her about.
Very well.
Joining the Zoom call, is that how you're going to bring her in?
Yes, Your Honor. You froze up on my end, Judge. Are you there?
Okay, I'm sorry. Do you want?
And then George, you also had inquired about an interpreter. Do you want to bring that up to the judge as well?
Yes, Judge. In speaking to my client, she is bilingual, and I have always communicated with her without an interpreter. But in talking to her this morning and preparing her for today's hearing, she indicated that an interpreter would be assistive to this testimony. Does the court have an interpreter available today, a Spanish interpreter?
We sure can. Ms. Myers can probably step off the call and send an email to either Daisha or Jartu.
Okay.
I'm on it right now, Judge.
All right, great.
Yeah, I was just informed of that this morning, Your Honor, and I think it's just for the purposes of getting the clearest testimony. So if the court can provide that, that would be very appreciated.
Absolutely. All right, thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Judge.
And Judge, I have emailed my signed bond motion or bond orders to Cheryl. May I be excused?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Stay safe.
You as well. Thank you so much, Counselor. It's good seeing you.
Thank you, Judge.
All righty.
And Judge, Ms. Angela D. Williams also forwarded a signed bond order to Your Honor for Darrell Williams.
And so you're trying to leave us as well, Mr. Rhodes, huh?
Yeah, but first, just waiting for your approval. Like, is this a bond?
Absolutely.
And then I'll ask if I can leave. But yeah.
All right, so let me do this. I'm going to take a real quick break to get over to my screen that would have all of my the paperwork attached to it. So let me go over there and look at everything, and then you'll be free to go, Mr. Rhodes.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. I'm gonna stop the video part of this, well, the YouTube part of it, so I can take care of some administrative matters, and we'll just start back up.